Ever wonder how you take a concept from here and turn it into something like that so other people know what you're thinking about? Well, it's just one man's brain and one concept, but I'll show you how I did it. Hey, this is Todd Wolf with Made by Wolf, and I want to show you the process that happened in my brain that led me to this render drawing of a shelf unit that I'm thinking about building at some point. So this was rendered on Procreate, and coming up here are a few of the sketches that I used developing that. They're just, again, these are just concept sketches that I'm thinking about moving elements around. These are these are two-dimensional, and it's just a way to kind of start expressing and exploring ideas in there. And then I moved to three-dimensional sketches. This is a sketch board that I in Procreate where I was developing several things on one artboard so that I can easily compare them. And then what I did this time was I went into Shaper 3D. I took a screenshot. I made the model, and then I created an angle that I thought I would like to render, and so I moved it around in space and then did a screenshot of it. Took that screenshot, brought it into Procreate as an image, placed it on its own layer, and then turned that lower layer's opacity down significantly so that I could then open another layer, place it on top of that, and then sketch and essentially be able to trace it. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just tracing it. As you are doing this, one of the things that you want to make sure that happens is that your different planes and the different surfaces that you're creating, you want to make sure that they are completely closed, because when you go to the when you start shading it and you start coloring it, any space that is not closed, the color will then bleed outside of it, and you'll see some examples of that coming up. And then I have to go back in and find out where it is that it's not closed and finish the closing of that so that the color stays where you want it to stay. So you know, got everything done here, and okay, so you can see here I'm starting to color it, and sometimes the color just is going all over the place. Ideally each one of these spaces would be colored individually, and so you can see I've gone back in there. I was playing with the curve tool in Procreate because I needed to redraw some lines so that the color got separated and stayed where it needs to stay. But that's all part of the learning process with Procreate. You can see there I've laid over essentially color onto the entire shelf unit itself, and I've got my two main colors. One's going to be kind of a brown, actually the dark brown that you see there I'm envisioning as some type of a textured and coloring process going in on top of the wood. For the lighter brown there, that is what I'm going to do is I'm going to render it so it looks like oak. Yeah, so that's the main coloring done at that point. And now what I'm going to do is to go through a technique that I learned from Robert Laszlo Kiss, and I will put a link for him so that you can find him if you want. He's a industrial designer who does a lot of rendering, and what he does is, you can see I've done it here. I've gone outside of Procreate. I've found an image of oak off of a Google search. You want it to be a fairly high resolution image. This oak, I put it on a layer. I've actually duplicated that layer so I can keep going back and duplicating it again. And then it's essentially a process of lightening its opacity significantly, as you can see I've done there, and then placing it where you need it, masking off the areas that you don't want the actual wood to show up. And so that's what I'm doing here. I've you know, masked it off in different layers. I try to get it so that the angle of the wood, it matches up. You can distort that image and place it on there. Again, Robert Laszlo Kiss has a much better tutorial on this, or shows it in a lot more detail than I'm going to be showing it here. But put in some shading, and One of the things I've started doing, and you can see me doing it here, is I've started trying to give some type of ground for the images to sit on, and I usually do that through a toning process with a darker tone at the bottom. I always try to sign something with the date so I can remember when I did it. I've gone in there and done some highlights and doing a little bit more shadowing here, again, to make it so that it separates from the ground just like you would normally have shadowing. One of the things that I was hoping to do with this shelf, and you can see it here at this point, is that there is a see that a very small blue kind of dot underneath the shelf. What that represents, I wanted this shelf to look like it was floating, but I didn't want to have it attached to the wall. And so the curve acts as the support on one end of the shelf, but the other end of the shelf can't just stay up in the air. And so the concept there would be that there would be a some type of a plexiglass either tube or solid piece there that would not show up very much and would still give support on that end of the shelf. That is pretty much it. That's the rendered drawing. Hope that was helpful to you. In order for us to make anything in our workshops and in our garages and in our basements, we have to be able to take it out of our mind and hopefully model it and understand it well enough and draw it out and get the drawings that we need, however our process is for doing that, enough so that we know that the time we're going to spend making it is actually going to work. And this is my process, so encourage you to play around and improve your sketching and rendering skills so that you too can get those concepts out of your head, develop them into something that's going to work, and get into your workshop and actually make it today. So thanks for joining me with this adventure.
Part of the creation process is always going to be, what do we do to get those concepts out of our head into some other form, whether it's a drawing or a model, so we can manipulate them, we can improve them, and we can share them with other people. So hope you found this helpful. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. This is, again, Todd Wolf by Made by Wolf, encouraging you to get out there and make something today.